Hello and welcome to tonight's Science and Conservation event brought to you by the Zoological Society of London, the last event of the 2021-2022 programme. So my name is Alexandra Thomas and I'm going to be chairing this evening's event. I am fortunate enough to have been working for ZSL for the past 7 years as the Wildlife Health Bridge Coordinator, and that is what tonight's event is all about, the Wildlife Health Bridge, a collaborative initiative between ZSL, the Royal Veterinary College, the Wildlife Institute of India, the University of Edinburgh and the University of Melbourne. The bridge was created with the aim of providing high quality education to wildlife health professionals, with particular focus on professionals based in biodiverse, low resource settings. Over the past 25 years, this partnership has trained over 700 wildlife health professionals, and tonight we are spotlighting them, just a selection of them. This evening's format is a little bit different to what you might be used to, as we've got 6 brilliant speakers lined up for you. So it'll also be about 5 minutes longer than normal, but please bear with us. Tony Sainsbury will begin by providing an overview of the bridge, followed by 5 of our fabulous alumni from around the world. And they're going to showcase the diversity of their roles today, their impact on the wider world of wildlife health, and highlight how the Wildlife Health Bridge enabled them to do this. But before we begin, I'd just like to remind how you, the audience, can take part in tonight's event, because as always, we love to hear from you and we welcome questions to the speakers. I'll be asking your questions to the speakers in 2 short panel sessions tonight. One that will come after the first 3 talks, and then the second will come after our final 3 talks. So there are going to be 2 ways that you can ask questions tonight. You can either go through our Pigeonhole website, which is the page www.pigeonhole.adat/1931. And just to repeat that, that's www.pigeonhole.at/1931. And there you can type in your questions for our speakers. If your question is for a particular speaker, then please remember to put their name in the question so we know who to direct it to. And on that page, you will see that you can also upvote other people's questions. So if there's one that you would also like to know the answer to, then please vote for it and we'll try and answer the most highly voted questions. If you can't access that web page or having any trouble with that, then you can also email your questions to scientific.events@zsl.org and we'll add those to the Pigeonhole for you. So don't worry, your questions will be put forward to the group and we will see if we can get them answered. So I'll also remind you of those details a little later on, but you can also find them in the YouTube description just underneath here, where at the end of the event we'll also be sharing a SurveyMonkey link with you, because it's really, really important for us to hear what you think, the audience. So without further ado, let's get back to tonight's event. And we are starting off with Dr. Tony Sainsbury. So Tony is a senior lecturer in wild animal health at the Institute of Zoology, Zoological Society of London, and he is one of the co-leaders of the Wildlife Health Bridge Initiative. Tony has researched diseases of free-living wild animals for over 30 years. He's carried out doctoral research in squirrel pox viruses and squirrels, and leads the disease risk analysis and health surveillance project at ZSL, which studies health and disease in relation to conservation translocations. So Tony, if you would like to start your presentation, and that is titled The Wildlife Health Bridge and the Training of Wildlife Health Professionals.
Thank you very much, Alex. Yes, I'd like to give you an introduction to the Wildlife Health Bridge. Thank you. So our vision for the Wildlife Health Bridge is achieving global capacity in highly trained wildlife health professionals through a synergized network. And if I can have the next slide. Our objectives are to provide high quality education in wildlife health in biodiverse, particularly in biodiverse low income countries, and to develop a global graduate network of wildlife health professionals. This initiative is a collaborative one, and our collaborators include the Wildlife Institute of India, the University of Edinburgh, the University of Melbourne, and the Royal Veterinary College. And if I could have the next slide. And we're achieving these objectives through 5 master's level educational courses. And if I could have the next slide. The MSc in Wild Animal Health is a face-to-face course run in London. It's been run since 1994 for veterinarians, and it covers captive and free-living wildlife health. Moving on. The MSc in Wild Animal Biology is for biologists, similar to the Wild Animal Health course, but it's been run since 2003. And next slide. The MVet Sci in Conservation Medicine has been run since 2012. This is an online course. It's run from the University of Edinburgh and also for veterinarians. Moving on, please. Whereas our interventions course in Wild Animal Health, this is a field course and is focused entirely on practical activity, and it's for qualified veterinarians only. Next slide. And it was launched in 2016, was run in Sariska Tiger Reserve in India, and it's been brilliant in terms of recruiting students, veterinarians from low-income countries. Over 80% of our students have come from those. Next. This IWAR course has 3 particular elements: population monitoring, field disease investigation, and also wild animal restraint and anesthesia. And these next 2 slides show some clips from the restraint and anesthesia component of the course. Firstly, some remote injection techniques preparation, and then the real thing in action in the following slide with remote injection of deer. Next slide. In terms of our outputs, we've got a really good record of research output, over 170 journal and conference publications by graduates of the course. Next slide. And these graduates come from many different countries of the world, from all continents. Next slide, please. And their careers develop in over a very broad range of career paths, right from captive wild animals to free-living wild animals, in research, also in teaching and clinical and other management work. Next slide. And we bring them, all our graduates, together in a knowledge exchange network called Wild Animal Alumni. And as Alex mentioned earlier, over 700 wildlife health professionals have graduated now from 67 different countries. Next slide, please. And we are in contact with them through a media network and quarterly newsletter. And if you'd like further information on any of our courses, please contact the Wildlife Health Bridge link there. And I'd just like to acknowledge in the next slide our collaborators, University of Edinburgh, Wildlife Institute of India, the Royal Veterinary College, University of Melbourne, and ZSL, and the Wildlife Health Bridge team at ZSL, Alex Thomas, Alannah Hogg, and Becky Foskett. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony, for that oversight into the Wildlife Health Bridge. And I would now like to introduce our first alumni speaker, and that is Ashleigh Lutz-Nelson. So Ashleigh's educational background is in animal health, welfare, behaviour and conservation, and she has worked with a variety of taxa over the past 20 years in AZAA or ARS accredited zoos, but has specialised with the Felix Taxon Advisory Group. She's currently the incoming Executive Director of the Snow Leopard Conservancy and a wildlife conservation non-profit organisation, with the mission of ensuring snow leopard survival and conserving mountain landscapes by expanding environmental awareness and sharing innovative practices through community stewardship and partnerships. And we're very much looking forward to her talk, which is titled Using a Collaborative One Health Approach to Improve the Health, Conservation and Wellbeing of Wildcats. And I will hand over to you, Ashleigh.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Tony, for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. Thank you. Namaste from Nepal. I'm Ashleigh from Snow Leopard Conservancy. Thank you so much. This course definitely changed my life and helped enable me to create the career path that I wanted and design a unique trajectory into conservation. So thank you so much for this opportunity. As Alex said, I'm going to be talking about using a collaborative One Health approach to improve the health, well-being, and conservation of wild felids. First, by talking about the role of zoos in conservation, an overview of SLC's work, talking about the One Health pilot initiative, which is why I'm here in Nepal, and about leveraging spirituality in culture and conservation. So no doubt the roles of zoos is getting much greater as more and more species become threatened and endangered around the world. I was involved with AZA zoos for 20 years prior to coming to SLC, and involved with the Felid Taxon Advisory Group, which specializes in improving the care, management, conservation, research, science, husbandry of wildcats in zoos, and that's for 18 different species. So this includes sustainability, involvement with in situ conservation, as well as capacity building within the zoological community on all topics of felid husbandry, conservation, care, safety, etc. Also, and as part of the Pallas Cat Species Survival Program leader, we created something called the Pallas Cat International Conservation Alliance, which brought together the in situ and ex situ worlds to create the first Pallas cat conservation strategy, which was a first for small cat species. As a keeper and curator in the zoo world for 20 years, our role every day was about enriching and making sure that every day was the best day for the animals in our care. This included providing enrichment that wasn't just environmental enrichment, but went above and beyond to provide mental and physical stimulation for the animals for their well-being. This also included behavioral husbandry and veterinary training as enrichment, and also so we could provide optimal health for our animals. This included voluntary blood draws for big cats, small cats, ultrasounds, geriatric care, supportive care, weight management, etc. Voluntary pregnancy ultrasound is a behavior that we did regularly with our pregnant females that were involved in species survival programs. This is so we can monitor fetal heartbeats comparatively to domestic cat and fetal growth, as well as develop a relationship and strong bond with the female that would help us manage the cubs post-partition. I had the pleasure of working with the 7 snow leopards at the San Francisco Zoo as the assistant curator of carnivores, including this young mother, Anna, and her adorable 2 cubs, Tika and Suring, who were born, unfortunately, with health challenges. We did what was called veterinary socialization, which meant we were able to work with them on a daily basis. Mom allowed us to care for them and provide veterinary care, which is optimal because they're still raised by her, so they understand species appropriate behavior to participate in the species survival program, but also it allows us to maintain their health and ensure every birth is successful, because that first year is so critical, and every birth in these endangered species programs is so critical and contributes to the overall conservation of the species, not just as an insurance population, but contributes to research and education for species awareness. I got introduced to the Snow Leopard Conservancy while I was working at San Francisco Zoo. The Conservancy was started by Dr. Rodney Jackson in the early 80s. He was the first person to study snow leopards in Nepal, along with Nepali partners, which led to the first studies ever on behavior, diet, range, all sorts of information that landed only the second ever picture of snow leopard in the wild on the cover of National Geographic. And so I've been tasked with leading Snow Leopard Conservancy into its next chapter as Dr. Rodney Jackson moves into retirement. So our vision is vibrant mountain landscapes where people and wildlife are in harmony with their environment. This exceptional big cat lives in the harshest environment in the world, living up above in the roof of the world, in one of the most rugged terrains, hypoxic conditions. This cat thrives. So if you look at the map where snow leopards live in 12 range countries, you can see the lights are indicated by cities. The orange is the snow leopard's map. There's not a lot of lights there. So fortunately for their conservation, there's not a lot of humans living in these areas. However, agropastoralists have lived in this landscape for over thousands of years, and they completely rely on their livestock for transportation, meat, livelihood products. And they are often left unprotected in corrals like this, which you can see is very easy for a snow leopard or a wolf to get into. And this can be problematic for hungry snow leopards, especially mothers with cubs, as they don't want to stray too far from the den. And it can often lead to a worst case situation, which is a mass depredation event. Snow leopards have a unique situation where if they get into a corral and they see live animals, they actually will kill all of them in one night. And this situation can happen, and it leads to complete devastation economically, emotionally, financially for the family and their livelihood. And it can often, unfortunately, result in eliminating the threat by killing the cat. This picture was taken in the early 70s, which led to the Conservancy's inception. The trade for snow leopard parts has been illegal since the 70s. However, there is a growing demand for parts and fur in illegal markets yet. And other threats to snow leopard survival include lack of awareness, reduction in wild prey over competition, human-wildlife conflict, as I mentioned, disruption to habitat, diseases, dogs, poaching, and more, including unsustainable development. And so the current status is around 3,500 to 7,000 individuals, and snow leopards are currently listed as vulnerable. So the Global Snow Leopard Ecosystem Protection Program is a united effort by the 12 governments where snow leopards live to secure 23 landscapes by 2022, each supporting at least 100 breeding individuals, prey species, and connective habitat. So our vision, our approach is actually driven on the fact that communities are at the heart of saving snow leopards. So we focus on human-wildlife coexistence through conflict mitigation, education, research that supports these actions, empowering Indigenous traditional knowledge and spirituality and conservation, and diversified livelihoods in addition to ecotourism. We work in 8 different countries throughout snow leopard range. These are our program sites, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Nepal. So we've been working in Nepal for 40 years as an organization, and under the last 3 years under the Darwin Initiative out of the UK, thanks to the UK, for this grant to work in the Narfu Valley with our partners Mountain Spirit. This area is very remote. It's up near the Tibetan border and the Annapurna Conservation Area, and these communities rely completely on their livestock for transportation and all their livelihoods, especially without ecotourism because of the pandemic. So this is upper pasture and one of the traditional goths or corrals where the livestock are kept, which you can see is an easy target for snow leopards. So we work with local herders to problem solve and provide solutions on conflict mitigation, which in a participatory way, we work with the community to co-develop these solutions from the beginning so that the community is invested and has co-financed and equal participation from the front end. While I was still based at San Francisco Zoo, we started a collaborative One Health program to try to reduce this human-wildlife conflict and retaliatory killings against snow leopards. This effort was a collaboration between San Francisco Zoological Society, Snow Leopard Conservancy, and International Veterinary Outreach, which is a US-based organization that focuses on improving animal welfare and capacity building training for veterinarians around the world in underserved or economically disadvantaged communities. Our goals are to establish an understanding of tolerance of snow leopards and wolves, which we found that wolves actually have a worse perception than snow leopards in this area, so we actually work to protect both. Second goal is to improve protection methods through predator proofing techniques, which include methods like fox lights, which are solar lights that prevent cats from coming near the corrals. And the best case scenario is meshed enclosures, which keep livestock safe and herders happy, but it can be expensive and hard to bring to some of these remote areas. So our goals for field work, which is why I'm here right now, were to survey local livestock herders to identify primary health and husbandry concerns to get a baseline, and provide community workshops for building local capacity within the community for improving animal health and reducing the risk of zoonotic diseases through training. Just a week and a half ago or so, we participated in the Naranfu communities. We had really good herder engagement where they came out to learn about how to protect their livestock and improve the health and care. For the health portion, we focused on rehydration. We found that gastroenteritis and colic were major concerns. Rehydration in terms of treating with oral rehydration salts, which can also be helpful for treating human infants. And then we also focused on wound cleaning and bandaging from minor attacks from predators like snow leopards and wolves. Our last goal here is building collaborative partnerships between ex situ, in situ, and multiple stakeholders, including veterinary schools, government, non-government organizations, to truly maximize our collective impact and local long-term sustainability. And so if we can improve the health of the people and the herders in these communities and improve the health of the livestock and their production, then we can reduce the spillover of zoonotic diseases to the wildlife, including blue sheep, the main snow leopard's prey, and snow leopards, and protect the environment and ecosystem for all. And last but not least, the Land of Snow Leopard initiative is empowering Indigenous traditional knowledge so that we can revive snow leopards and other species as sacred totem species, and really try to improve the loss of inspiration and apathy that is a growing threat to conservation around the world. And we are seeing a benefit of more tolerance and forgiveness in communities for cats that have had conflict in these areas because of this initiative. So thank you very, very much for your time. My email is below. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that, Ashleigh. That was really wonderful and absolutely gorgeous imagery on your background slides. Wonderful. Okay, so just a reminder, everybody, if you do have questions, you can put them on the Pigeonhole site, which is in the YouTube information underneath. But for now, I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Aditi Sharma and ask her to begin presenting. So Aditi is now the Deputy Chief Veterinary Officer in the government of Uttarakhand, India, where she's been working since 2003. She has an expertise in a range of wildlife management areas, including wildlife capture and rescue, human-wildlife conflict mitigation, veterinary surgery and radiology, disease surveillance, livestock health management, animal-inclusive disaster risk reduction, One Health, and veterinary leadership. She completed our Interventions in Wild Animal Health field course in 2016, and we're very much looking forward to your talk of role of veterinarians in wildlife management. So please take it away, Aditi.
Thank you, Alexandra, and the whole ZSL team. I think I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to talk on the role of the veterinarians in wildlife management. So I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so when we talk of the veterinarians, they have a multiple role in the wildlife management, because earlier we thought that we have only the duty of the health management, but nowadays with all the skills and training with all the capacity building with the veterinarians are getting the opportunities from different field courses, like one is being organized by ZSL in jointly with Wildlife Institute of India and then University of Edinburgh and some other courses like this. So we are getting the opportunities to learn a number of things, and now we can say that it's overall wildlife health management or advanced wildlife management, which includes a number of other tasks as well. So because I'm from India, so I just wish you to know that what are the major wildlife species which we manage in India. So these are the elephant, tiger, leopard, deer species, then antelopes. We have only 4 species of antelopes in India. One of them is nilgai, then bear, black bear or sloth bear, non-human primates. Goral is a wild goat and varal is the wild sheep, which is also known as blue sheep. And then, of course, we have 8 species of wildcats, and out of those, 2 are more common, leopard cat and the jungle cat. So the types of wildlife which we have to manage are either free-ranging in the protected areas like tiger reserves or national parks or wildlife sanctuaries, or they can be semi-free-ranging, where they are, of course, they are captive, but their enclosures are very large. So that is more resemblance to their natural habitat. And the third one are the captive management, where the animals are kept in captivity, like in zoological parks or in rescue centers, or like for elephants, we have elephant camps. So these are the 3 categories of wild animals which a veterinarian manages in India. So now we can see that what are the major roles which a veterinarian plays for wildlife management. Of course, wildlife health management. Then we have the duty of wildlife capture, rescue, and rehabilitation. Hand raising of often young ones like elephant calves, or sometimes we get the cubs of leopards or tigers or other big cats. In any species, whenever we get an orphan kid or calf, we hand raise them. Though the success rate is not very promising, but of course it's improving over the years. Then of course necropsy, post-mortem examinations, forensic and vetro-legal issues are something very important, because in this the evidence and the statement of the veterinarian is very important for taking the decision by the judge. Then human wildlife conflict mitigation measures, we play a very major role in that, because in human wildlife, during the human wildlife conflict management or mitigation, a number of animals do get injured also, and then we have to either release or rehabilitate the animals. So for that, a presence of a veterinarian is very important. Then we have some menaces due to some wildlife species, like for monkey menace, we are doing the sterilization to control the population. Of course, we cannot decrease the present population, but like we go for sterilization so that further the population will not increase, because the Wildlife Act of India is a bit stringent. It does not allow any permission of any hunting permission, even for the surplus population management, because we are more pro conservation. So our Wildlife Act does not allow the hunting at all. Then we have translocation programs, like I have been a part of elephant translocation and tiger translocation, but otherwise we have other species translocation programs for other species as well. Then wild animal population estimation or census. We don't call it actually proper census, because it's not any exact number. It's just a estimation. For example, for tiger, we estimate the population with help of the photographs which we get from the camera traps, and then because the tigers, they have the unique stripes, so on that basis we count the tigers. Similarly, in elephants, there is one head count method and another one is dung method. Then supervision of telemetric monitoring and tracking of target wildlife. Like I said, that veterinarians are now moving into more and more different tasks of wildlife management. Earlier, we were only doing the health management part or the disease surveillance part or the pathological laboratory investigations part. But now we are more into management part as well. And all these things we have learned from different courses, different field courses which are organized for veterinarians as well as non-vets on wildlife management. Capacity building of the forest staff is also somewhere it's our duty, because when we are going for a rescue operation, then we have a team, we have to lead a team which has forest staff and forest officers as well. So we have that responsibility that we should explain and instruct them before going into the further operation, that what is to be done by which person. And we have to train them about the antidotes as well. because in case of mishappening, all the team members should be knowing where is the antidote and how it is to be given. Then the last but not the least is one major responsibility which everyone has, not only veterinarian, is the public awareness campaigns and educating people about zoonotic diseases. Because we talk a lot about One Health nowadays. We have been talking since decades, but since this COVID pandemics, now we are talking much more about the One Health. So it's our duty to make the public aware about the transmission of the zoonotic diseases, what zoonotic diseases are, how they are transmitted, by organizing different public awareness campaigns. And another topic for which we organize the public awareness campaigns is for coexistence of human and wildlife. Because of the negative interactions between human and wildlife and livestock, there has been a lot of human wildlife conflict in India. But because both humans and wild animals, both are equally responsible for that, because of the population explosion of the humans, and because we lack a surplus population management policy for the wild animals, the population of humans as well as wild animals is increasing. So there is a competition for the common resources, and also the land use changes are also happening. So the people should be aware that removal or killing or culling of that particular animal is not a solution, but we have to try to coexist with the wild animals. Then translocation programs which have been there over the years in India, like tiger and leopard translocation, elephant translocation, then rhino translocation, wild dog translocation, axis deer translocation, Barasingha, that is swamp deer, that translocation, then wild buffaloes, nilgai and boar translocation. Now we come to the wildlife health management. If we want to divide into subunits, then we can say that some are preventive measures or some are therapeutic measures, and one part is diagnostics. So that can be in form of vaccination, deworming programs, or treatment. Disease surveillance is also very important. A regular disease surveillance should be there. Then laboratory investigations have their own importance.
Aditi,
yep.
Just say we might have to begin to wrap up, but yes. If you could just go to your final slide, that'd be fantastic.
Sure.
Thank
These
you.
These are some pictures which are showing the wildlife capture, rescue and rehabilitations. Then these are post-mortem examination. These are some human wildlife conflict mitigation picture glimpses from India. And this is the monkey sterilization program. We do the vasectomy and tubectomy, laparoscopic tubectomy, and then vasectomy. And these are about the forensics and vetro-legal cases. We collect the sample and send to the forensic labs. Scat sample, we analyze for the presence of human DNA when we think that either leopard or a tiger has turned into a man-eater. Then we have, we can coordinate animal population estimation can be done with help of camera trapping, transit walk, or block count method. Supervision of telemetric monitoring, like we radio collar the animals and then we can monitor their presence. And these are some tracking methods. Everyone know about that: the radio telemetry, camera trap, pug marks, pug impression pads. And the top of all, the capacity building of the forest office, very important. And these are the public awareness campaigns. So thank you so much for your patient listening. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Aditi, and apologies for rushing you through at the end, but I'm sure a lot of it we can cover in the Q&A, which segues us very nicely into our panel. So just a reminder, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to bring back our first three speakers. So that is Tony, Ashleigh and Aditi. And we're going to answer questions that you have for them. So just a reminder that you can post your questions via the Pigeonhole website. So that is www.pigeonhole.com. www.at/1931, and that is shared in the YouTube description below. And you can upvote questions that are already there if you wanted to ask that question or you're interested in it. And if you cannot access that, once again, you can email them through to scientific.events@zsl.org. And we've got a whole team of wonderful people in the background who'll make sure that they get through. So without further ado, I will begin asking the first question. So it looks like our first question is going to Ashleigh. So great talk, Ashleigh, thank you. So the question is, how have your initiatives affected the numbers of snow leopards in your project area?
Good question. Yes, it's difficult to say. The reason is because it's very difficult to count snow leopards given the environment that they live in. There's only part of their habitat that's actually fully been assessed. But there is a initiative through the Global Snow Leopard Ecosystem Protection Program to do a worldwide assessment of snow leopards, and it's called the PAWS Initiative, Population Assessment of the World's Snow Leopards. And it's using a standardized method of camera trapping, capture, recapture, and habitat suitability and modeling to look at the overall population of snow leopards. But given there are a lot of challenges even with camera trapping and doing it this way, so the best way to count snow leopards is using genetic analysis. And so we do this in the area where we work. We do camera trapping, ideally by citizen scientists. We try to train locals to do the actual camera trapping and also with the support of local biologists. But in addition, collecting scat samples can help inform genetics of individuals, population, and also conflict snow leopards. So, but this is yet to be done for the full range. It is a priority of the GSLIP, but it is, for us, we look more at the tolerance. We evaluate our programs by attitude of the communities and tolerance of conflict. And we do hope to assess the population of all of the areas eventually, but it's taking a while and resources are limited. So when it comes down to it, putting the money towards conflict mitigation has been more of a priority for us in building tolerance.
Thank you very much, Ashleigh. That's really interesting. Okay, I will pass the next question on to Aditi. So the question is, Aditi, an interesting talk on your very varied work. Thank you. As the global population continues to grow, what do you see as the future of tackling human-wildlife conflict?
Okay, so as I said, that with the increasing population, with the increasing human population, there is a lot of anthropogenic pressure on the forest as well as on the habitat as well as on the wild animals. The situation is that we have been doing deforestation, and then the forest land is being converted into agricultural land because more human population need more, of course, the more crops and more resources, and they are somewhere they are over exploiting the natural ecosystem services and resources. But simultaneously, the habitat of the wild animals is being decreasing. So what is happening is the very close interaction between the wild animals and the human. And when this interaction becomes negative, it becomes in the form of competition between human and wild animals, it becomes a conflict. So we have tried a number of methods for human-wildlife conflict mitigation. We have even captured the animals who were involved in conflict, and we have translocated them to different places. But one thing is that the space created by removal of any wild animal is very quickly replaced by another animal. So this is just like shifting a problem from one place to another place. Other thing is that they have a habit of coming back to the place from where you have relocated unless it's more than 500 kilometers away. So this also doesn't solve our problem. And shifting them into rescue centers is also not a solution because we don't have that many rescue centers, and we don't have that much of budget always, so that we can take care of the wild animals properly. So what I think is that there is no other solution, there is no other option than learning how to coexist with the animals. Like you can take some precautions, you know about the movement pattern, you know about the behavior of the animals, and accordingly you can enter the forest, and if it's not required, please do not enter. And Indian government is relocating the people who are living inside the forest, who are dependent on the forest, fuel, for fodder, for everything. So they are relocating them outside, and then they are giving either some cash package or some land for them to settle. So I think coexistence is the only thing which can be a solution in long term. I don't see anything else as a solution, long-term solution. Until unless culling is allowed in India, I'm talking in perspective of India, because culling of surplus population or hunting permits for surplus population is not allowed in India.
Thank you very much, Aditi. I saw Ashleigh nodding her head along there regarding the comments of coexisting. So it seems you two are in agreement and working towards the same solution, not that far from each other. So our next question, and this is probably one for you, Tony. Can you please detail the qualifications that will allow a veterinarian to participate in the field course? It seems that we've already got some inspired potential participants.
That's great. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for the question. So it's important to say initially that we give priorities to South Asian applicants for the field course that's run in Suriska National Park. But a basic veterinary qualification is all that's required, though if there's a competition between places, then we'll take into account prior wildlife experience and give places to the most experienced applicants.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tony. So I hope that has answered the question there. So another question for you, Ashleigh, and I think this will be our final question. For Ashleigh, it is good to hear how zoos support and inform conservation. Your community engagement is really impressive. Are younger generations more invested in conservation than older generations, do you find?
Are younger generations more invested than older?
In conservation, comparable to older generations?
Oh, I think in general, yes. Children are very, receptive, and I'm very inspired by the youngest generation with what they know, especially coming through the zoo camps. I'm sure at ZSL, they at London Zoo and Whipsnade Zoo as well, that the children coming through these programs are learning about these challenges and are really feeling, from what I've seen, empowered, to get involved and really make a difference and change the world. I found that older adults are receptive as well. It really just depends on the individual, but given all of the growing challenges, I do think that there's a general, everybody's feeling the weight of a lot of these, a lot of the growing threats that we all face. So, but I really do believe that the younger generation will figure this out. And with all the conservation education that is now in schools at the younger levels, I didn't have as much even when I was a kid. So I think that it's much more ubiquitous in schools now, and that's one of our things that we try to promote in the rural communities where snow leopards live, and try to also get it to herders and everybody at different education levels and different aspects so that they can all contribute.
Thanks very much, Ashleigh.
Thanks.
So we do actually have time for one quick question more. And this is, Aditi, do you have a website where we could learn more about your work? And that's applicable to every one of you, actually. Is there anywhere that people can read more about the work that you're doing?
Okay, that's so nice to ask. Actually, I'm developing a website for my individual website, but for that, for present, I can tell you that I have made a page in the name of Women Wildlife Veterinarians of India. So I cover the interviews and work of women wildlife veterinarians who are working in India. So if anyone is interested, then you are most welcome to kindly check that page. And I have one more YouTube channel also in my name, but website I can share maybe a month after this, because I'm just developing it. Thank you so much.
The questionnaire is ahead of the game, predicting the future. Ashleigh, do you have anywhere?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you for asking. It's www.snowleopardconservancy.org. We have a newsletter. You can sign up to receive monthly e-news, and we also have social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We try to post regularly updates from the field, so please join us. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tony, your information is...
Yeah, there's the Wildlife Health Bridge website. I also wanted to mention the Wildlife Institute of India's website, which should be highly relevant to any work in India and South Asia in general.
Absolutely. And there is a Padlet board linked underneath the YouTube blurb where all of our speakers' information is added, as well as links to our collaborators and the partners and the Wildlife Health Bridge website. And after this, we can add a few more links to the YouTube blurb. So if Aditi and Ashleigh will get those details and make sure everyone has access. But otherwise, thank you so much for this first Q&A and for your talks. And we will now move on to our next speaker, which will be Dr. Aaron Zachary. Okay, so just a little bit about Aaron before he starts. Arun is the Chief Forest Veterinary Officer in the Department of Forest and Wildlife of the Government of Kerala, India. He completed the MSc in Wild Animal Health and with the Royal Veterinary College in 2006, and has gone and gained extensive experience working in various veterinary officer roles in the Government of Kerala since 1998. His current research interests include mortality in free-ranging Indian tigers, tuberculosis in free-ranging Asian elephants, epidemiology of endothelial elephant herpes virus infection in captive and free-ranging Asian elephants, and genetic variation in highly fatal Kyanso forest disease viruses. And he is going to be talking on disease ecology of free-ranging wildlife and emerging diseases, case studies from India, and I'm sure will correct any of my mispronunciations that I just did. So Dr. Arun, over to you.
Thank you, Alexandra. I hope my voice is audible.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity as an alumni in Wild Animal Health Program course I joined in 2004. And in fact, my dream was to start working in free-ranging wildlife, especially in disease ecology. So the last 20 years we're working on it, and I just want to share some of our experience with you. Oops. All right. Okay. There's a huge difference between a free-ranging wildlife vet and a vet practicing in captivity. So the challenges are very vast, especially for us, like from India. So you know, it's a various species with a limited knowledge of biology and ecology. We don't have much about the knowledge of biology of a species or its ecology. And ecology, the interaction between the different species, the knowledge is very limited. And besides, the classical epidemiological concept cannot be used in many wildlife situations, free-ranging wildlife situations. For example, SAR model, you know, we don't know the susceptible infection and recovered parameters. So you cannot put those classical veterinary epidemiological concept into free-ranging wildlife situation. And again, conventional epidemiological methods cannot be used in free-ranging wildlife. That's again surprisingly, you know, when you look into the veterinary practice, you can find there are gold standards which cannot be applied because you don't have that kind of freedom to do that, because I cannot dart all the tigers and get the blood samples and look into the serological levels, because it's, you know, they're highly conserved animals. Then the biggest thing is the lack of previous research data. When I joined, actually, there is no literatures available about disease situation in the wild. For example, when we started doing so, we evolved a strategy. We started doing post-mortem in all the dead wild animals, irrespective of whatever the cause, whether it's a metrolegal or whatever. So we find a lot of diseases which are really co-evolved with the species. And on the basis of it, we have started working. For example, this one is a kobold. This is a stomach of an elephant. You can find, these photos are a bit, not pleasant to see. Anyway, these are small maggots you can see. You can cut up on any elephant stomach, you can see, which actually doesn't cause much of a disease actually to this elephant, which laid egg. And the fly laid egg. It's a small fly, laid egg towards the commission of the mouth. And when animal start feeding, it hatch into the stomach, the pupate, and they fly out. This is a coevolution in between a fly and an elephant. So we have our perspective. So Koboldia won't kill elephants at all, but at the same time, this one, Grammocephalus, which kills 60% of our elephant calves, and which is a small hookworm affecting the liver, and which is causing the mortality. Even though it is co-evolved with the species, the evolution of the worm and species together, host species together, which can kill the species and which can control the population mechanism. Okay, if a population is surplus, these parasites have a role in controlling. So we look into the population disease in such a perfect purview that it's the most important selection process which is happening. For example, in the case of tiger, we did a lot of postmortems in tiger. So, and we found that this one, a Grammocephalus, Galongus pernicious, is a small nodular worm on the intestine, like a pimplicate in cattle. When the animal weak, they pop out and they can cause the death of the animal. So just like a time bomb in a tiger. So the disease is coevolved. Then we have other diseases like, microparasites, and which can affect multiple taxa, anthrax. Then finally, we developed that baseline, and we started to think about, emerging diseases. It is the first emerging disease we found out in the free-ranging wildlife elephants, first time in the world. Actually, this is the tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is very common in captive elephants because they are interacting with the humans. They might be infected with the tuberculosis. So tuberculosis, MTB, is a human pathogen. All right, this is our first case in 2007, massive lesions, gross lesions and massive caseous lesions in the lungs. So not pleasant. And we did the histopathology and everything. So we found 8 new cases of free-ranging TB in elephants, which is quite surprising. The TB is not easy as you get transmitted. You have to, when you sneeze, through the particles, aerosol particles, and the other person get infected. Sometimes you have to take the trunk of a wild elephant to sneeze, but I don't know, it is happening. This is a level of interaction in between, the population and the wild, which is quite surprising. And again, we find pathogen spillover. It's a clean pathogen spillover. It's an emerging disease, a clean pathogen spillover. And we find the same thing in the wild boars as well. Okay, then the last 3-4 years, we find a new novel disease emerging in adult elephants, killing adult elephants, which is called Clostridium novae, subtype B, and which is through the contamination of water bodies. Okay, this is the first report. We got 54 elephants died because of it. And we don't have such kind of reports before, and the past 20 years, we haven't seen it. And we think it's got a direct correlation with the climate. So, and again, we got other emerging diseases, classical swine fever in wild boars. There's again a spillover case from domestic pigs to wild boar, when they are interacting. And we got, canine distemper cases in leopards also. It's emerging. It's not an outbreak proportion. It's interestingly because they are solitary animals, but they predate dogs when near to the human vicinity. So there is a high chance of getting it. But luckily, we don't have a huge outbreak proportion. So, but we are finding that again, canine distemper in wild dogs are does. They are a highly endangered species, and we got this emerging in wild dogs. And again, canine distemper outbreaks in civets. The last 5 years, we've got a huge, massive mortality in civets because of canine distemper. Right, and coming to the emerging viral disease in elephants, the endothelial elephant herpes virus, we first reported in 2007 in the captive elephants. Then we got huge amount of animals and wild elephants. And we changed the concept also because it was previously thought that it was jumped from African elephant to Asian elephants in captive situations. But we found that it's really evolved in Asian elephants, and with the massive lesions you can find facial edema and bluish tongue, and you can find the massive hemorrhagic lesions. So it's something when we start, because 2007 we got the first case, then before there was no report except one report, but that was not confirmed. Then we have a huge pathological and molecular data, and we have the whole evolutionary process of this pathogen, how it's established, and we found that they are transmission horizontal both in captive and the wild situation by tracking the herds. So the EHV is a pathological and molecular epidemiological evidences we document the first time, and we have reported EHV in the free-ranging wildlife. Then we come to other diseases like zoonotic disease, that is a highly fatal disease. In 2014, we report the first outbreak. Then around 2018, animals died, 12 casualty in humans and 120 human cases, and we established that. So wonderfully, the first report in 1944 in a small village in Kaisanur in Karnataka, but slowly it's spreading. And we found that when we look into the molecular data, we found that they are quite divergent from the original genotype, and which is quite interesting actually. So we think that there are local populations of virus existing. So the conclusion is that actually diseases play a major role in wildlife, and pathogen host environment interaction are the determinant of the disease, and pathogen pollution is a major wildlife threat, and wildlife diseases are the source of many human emerging diseases, and wildlife disease ecology thus need to be studied for the conservation of wildlife and for the human welfare. And interestingly, when I joined as a student in 2004, our concept was very, very limited, and CEDACEL really played a major role because they were the leaders on disease ecology and emerging diseases. So really thanks to them, and thank you very much for this opportunity. If you have a question, please, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aaron. We'll leave the questions to the panel at the end, but some really thought-provoking stuff there. Okay, so we will move on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Carlos Valderamma. And Carlos is a veterinarian from the University Nacional de Colombia, with a Master of Science in Wild Animal Health from the Royal Veterinary College and Zoological Society of London. He has experience in human-animal conflict resolution, wildlife capture and transport, and animal trafficking control. Carlos's main focus is to lead interdisciplinary studies, working with carnivores as focal species to find an equilibrium between agricultural production and the conservation of ecosystems. And I will hand over now to Dr. Carlos, and he will be speaking on challenges for wildlife conservation in Colombia.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this event. For us, it's a huge topic. This is a very short period of time, so I'm gonna try to very quickly show you the different challenges that we are facing for wildlife conservation in Colombia and how we as wildlife health professionals can help. Basically, Colombia, first of all, I want to show you, it's a massive biodiverse country. We are huge. We are the first in number of species of birds, orchids, butterflies. We are the second in plants, amphibians, and fresh river fish. We are the third in palms and reptiles, and the sixth on mammals. And it's not only about the number of species, it's also about the ecoregions that we have. We have 5 very distinctive terrestrial ecosystems or ecoregions. That is the Chocó region, that is here just right at the edge of the Pacific Ocean. We also have the Amazon rainforest. We have the Orinoquia, that are grasslands, savannas. We have all the Andes region, that of course there are mountains, and the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, and we have the Caribbean region. So they all face different challenges, and they all have different needs and species, of course. And not leaving behind the marine ecosystems. We have the Pacific Oceans and the Caribbean Sea. So as you can see, our major first big challenge for Colombia is how to protect so much biodiversity with so much different needs in each region. And of course, they are unfortunately all very endangered. We have more around 1,300 species that are endangered, 500 introduced species that are, many of them are invasive right now. But probably the major challenge is that most of our ecosystems, more than half of our ecosystem, and are in some category of threat, from critically endangered to vulnerable. So only 41% of our ecosystem are considered least concerns. So we are losing a lot, not only in terms of number of species, but ecosystems. So that's why we focus is how to address all these issues and how to create the strategies that we can maybe use in different locations in the country. So that's why we use large carnivores, as you have seen in our previous speakers. They are fantastic species because they are four keystone species that control prey populations, and they are umbrella species. So we have to protect them. We have to protect all the biodiversity that lives with them, all the forests, the prey species. That's why we focus on Andean bears, jaguars, and pumas. But they have a lot of threats, mainly in Colombia, is because of the loss of habitats and prey species, because of land appropriation and illegal crops. As you know, unfortunately, Colombia is well known for all the armed conflict, and also they engage into conflict because they predate on cattle, and people kill them for that reason. So we design conservation strategies, programs, plans. But we learned that we knew little about our wild carnivores. So we start the wildlife monitoring program, where we can check with camera traps where they are, and not only large carnivores, also prey species, small carnivores. And so we learn from these new species. And we also did some monitoring with Andean bears. So all the remote anesthesia was very helpful to be able to anesthetize these individuals, put radio collars on them, and in that sense knew a little bit more on them. And also with jaguars and pumas, we did the same. So it's a long road learning in this process, but we focus on this, but we needed as well to work with the people in the field. So we did a lot of workshops, raising awareness about the importance of large carnivores in the ecosystems, and teaching them how to monitor themselves in their own farms, how they can learn from their own backyard, and because they are the ones that are protecting actually these animals. We also developed an application that allows people to report damages to the environment and give us information firsthand of when things are happening. So, and in that sense, we give more to the people to be able to help us spread the word and help prevent damages to the environment. But that wasn't enough. We have to work as well in conflict, because many of these animals get killed, as I mentioned, and we have to work in protocols on human carnivore coexistence. So we start a battery of different ideas to give people solutions so they can avoid predation and minimize the conflict in that sense. So all your pathology and to identify why are the animals dying in the farm, because it's very easy to people to blame the jaguar or the puma or the bear about killing their animals. But in that sense, we teach them how to differentiate the different animals, because it could die because of disease, and how to improve as well the different paddocks, or how they can manage their cattle. So in that sense, they minimize the risk of getting predated, or the animals getting predated from wild carnivores. And in that sense, we minimize the conflict, especially design electrical fences for that reason, as an example. Well, we also attend animals that get attacked and survive. This was a horse that was attacked by a jaguar. As you can see, they are very powerful animals, and this was a lucky chap that managed to survive the attack. And with some veterinarian treatment and clinical examination, we managed it recovers. Well, thankfully, it recovers. And sometimes we also have to work in rescue. So we have to help rescue some animals that are subject to wildlife traffic. So we do clinical examinations, some recommendations to recover them and trying to do some rehabilitation. This is the least that we can do, to be honest. It's probably what people see more about we as wildlife vets, but it's the least that we do. And of course, we sometimes get some odd requests, like invasive species like wild hippos getting into the country and creating issues. So we have to recreate protocols to control and manage these species that are very difficult to manage because of their size. We don't have any animal like that in Colombia. So there was a very interesting, it's a very interesting condition that we have in our country, and we haven't solved it yet. So any ideas are welcome, how to solve the situation with the wild hippo population in Colombia. And last, just to close, I want to show you probably one of the projects that personify everything that we do, and this is Conserva Coffee, that we managed to get that coffee growers become nature defenders. And basically they are very good because basically they create this buffer zone around the protected a forested area, and this coffee plantation serves as a buffer zone to avoid conflict with large carnivores, and at the same time it creates it stops the expansion of deforestation, because this coffee benefit from the shade of the forest. So in that sense, we are giving back some of that to that community, because at the same time they receive more for the coffee, at least 10% more of that. And we monitor their forests, and we have found at least 17 different species next to the coffee plantation. And this is one example of Andean bear 50 meters from the coffee plantation. So as you can see, there is many that we can do, a lot that we can do, and there is a lot of challenges that we can have in our country. Of course, there is a lot that it can be done, and we need very smart, trained people to help us in this endeavor. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. That was, yes, a lot of challenges to face, but well, hopefully so out of this we'll get something. Okay, so finally on to our final speaker of the evening. I'd like to introduce Dr. Alejandra Montalba. So Alejandra is a veterinarian from Chile. She got her MSc in wild animal health, and since 2013 she's been the director of the National Zoo of Chile, with the first woman to hold that position since the zoo opened in 1925. Fantastic. Currently, Dr. Montalba is the president of the Association of Wildlife Veterinarians of Chile and professor of University Mayor, also in Chile. So I'd like to hand over for your talk, Conservation Efforts in a Latin American Zoo, Partnerships and Community Engagement.
Thank you, Alexandra. Let me see if I can move this. Okay, so the National Zoo of Chile is in between the capital of the country, and is inside of a park. You can see in the first picture that there's a green patch in the middle of the city. That's the Metropolitan Park. And inside of the Metropolitan Park is the National Zoo. And we are part of IZE, species 360, WAZA, and the Latin American Associations of Zoos and Aquariums. And we are also a wildlife rehabilitation center. We get more than 1,000 wild animals per year, including animals that are from illegal trade. And during lockdown, we also had to help the authorities to capture wild pumas that were in the city. In total of 11 pumas we had to capture in 2020 and release them back into the wild. Besides teaching our visitors about conservation of biodiversity, and we get around 1 million visitors per year. We do have plenty of conservation projects on the field. So I'm going to talk about some of them because I don't have much time. So I'm going to highlight 3 of them, and these projects are not possible without partners that help us with grants and support on field. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Andean Highlands flamingo. In this project, we go to the north of the country and we put satellite transmitters to flamingos. We have 3 of the 6 species in our country. And with that, we check all the routes they make. And the goal is to detect special places where they breed and they feed. So in order to protect them in the future, there are a lot of projects of lithium mining in that area. So the information is going to be very important for that as well. And we work up there in the north with communities, with school, with tourism companies in order to let them know the importance of these fauna, the flamingos, and let them know about sustainable tourism in the area as well and how to protect those areas. And our partners in these projects is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So we have a lot of American zoos supporting us for going there up north to put the satellite transmitters, and the Zoo Conservation Outreach Group and a foundation that is from Chile, which is Fundación Meri, and helped us to do all our work. The second one that I'm going to talk about is Humboldt penguin. We do have Humboldt penguins mostly in all part of the country. And we're going to a small place that is about 3 or 4 hours away from Santiago up north. And as you can see in the first picture, there's a small island pretty close to the land, and it's not protected. It has invasive species like rats, and a lot of tourism as well. And even they play football in that island where a Humboldt penguin colony lives and breeds. So they're facing a lot of threats, like due to climate change. It rains during breeding seasons and the invasive species. So we go there, and what we do is to check all the nests during breeding season. And as soon as we get, we check that eggs are abandoned, we take them to the zoo, use forest parents to make the chicks grow and being incubated. And so we have population, a wild population in our zoo in order to release them back to the wild as soon as the threats are not there and the island is completely preserved. But we cannot do that without involving the community. So we have been working a couple of years with the tourism companies and the local school, because they have only one school there. So we go with the kids to clean the beaches and search the local fauna in wetlands and celebrate the Penguin Day. And also we put signage all over the coastal line for tourists and local people to know what they have in their coasts. And that is not possible without, again, partners. And for that, we have the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and the Disney Conservation Fund as well. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about the Loa water frog. which looks pretty nice in there. But the story behind that is very sad. This frog is found only in one pond in the whole planet, up north in the country. And that pond was dry. In 2019, two scientists went there and found that the pond was dry due to illegal water extraction, due to mining companies mainly. And what they did is they decided to rescue all the individuals they could find and take them to us, to the zoo, to save the whole species. So this is what the pond looked like. And they rescue the last 14 lower water frogs of the planet. And as you can see on the right, in the bottom, the frogs used to be very chubby and beautiful, and they got them to us like the other picture next to it, like very malnourished individuals. And we knew this in a 2-week notice, so we had to run to save this species. Nothing was done ex situ, in ex situ captivity with this species. So we have to start inventing how to make them survive and mimic the water conditions up north, which is a desert. So it's very different, the water, than the rest of the country. And also the feed issue, the food issue was very difficult to mimic. But these in very bad conditions frogs were from that you can see, that's a very skinny one to very normal ones. And we had reproduction during 2020 and 2021. We had more than 600 eggs, and nowadays we have more than 120 completely developed loa frogs. I'm sorry, and I'm going to talk about what the challenges were. We were working with Amphibian Arc and the Amphibian Survival Alliance and Rewild and the Ministry of Environment of our country. And even if we had some media when we got these loa frogs, wasn't enough. We wanted to make everyone in the whole country know what was happening, that we had the last 14 individuals, that something has to be done to restore their habitat in order to release them back into the wild. And habitat loss, we know, is a problem for lots of wild species. So we wanted to use this species as an umbrella as well. So we wanted to make this case out loud, that the whole country knew about it. Chile is a very small country, very far away from the rest of the world. And with these partners, we managed to get into Leonardo DiCaprio's social media. So he was talking about the work that we were doing to rescue the lower water frog from extinction, and all what the actions had to be taken. And with that, the media exploded. Everyone was talking about Leo and our country and the loa frogs. So everyone knew about the loa frogs. So that was a huge success for us. And he was talking about the reproduction as well in their social media. So the whole country knew about it again. Leo was the one that let us spread the word about the loa frog in the whole country. So the media exploded, television and newspapers and everything. So nowadays, everyone knows about the water loa frog in the country. It was even chosen as the ambassador, the wild ambassador of the year in 2020 by the Jane Goodall Institute, because it was the species that had the major amount of votes, competing against whales and sea otters and charismatic animals. So we, with these partners, we could achieve to have the whole country talking about the Loa frogs. And actually last week, we had some news that—
Alejandra, sorry, yes? I think we're going to have to wrap up, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Okay, okay. No, it's okay. This is my last slide. So I would like to thank to the masters at ZSL and RBC, because it was a wide opening experience. I used to love zoological medicine, but after the masters, I realized that so much was needed to be done about conservation that actually I changed my focus, and now I'm working on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really wonderful, and a fantastic name drop at the end with Leonardo DiCaprio. Can't really beat that, can you? Okay, so to wrap up this session, I'd like to bring on our last three speakers to begin the Q&A. So our first question is to Carlos. So Carlos, what direction do you think conservation is heading in Colombia? Do you feel hopeful about the future of conservation there?
Well, that's a very difficult question. But yeah, hopeful, yes, very much. I think that things from where we started this, and as Alejandra was saying, the focus changed so much after you do a course like this. Is amazing, because you have so much expectations about what a vet do in wildlife, and you just think that you are going to be capturing animals and doing rehabilitation and things like that. But at the end of the day, what I do least. And basically our focus now is in this kind of strategies like the one that I show at the end, where we are trying to bring people, institutions, wildlife conservationists from all the different careers or approaches, because as you can see, we have developed apps, technology. We have worked with communities. We have worked with cattle ranches, with coffee growers, with everyone, with zoos. So it's amazing how much we can do. And just to answer the question, is basically, we think is heading towards those approaches, like the One Health approach, like the sustainable goals of the United Nations, just how to create a production system that takes into account the conservation of the ecosystem and the livelihood of people. And that's how we can work more and help more from any position. And what do I eat? How do I eat it? How do I choose what to buy and what not to buy? So it's just, I think that's what conservation is going towards, and is how we can work with everyone, basically from all the different levels, from school teacher, from a school student, to PhD professors that are doing scientific research at different levels. So we all have a small part to have part on it. So yeah, I think that's where it's going towards.
Thank you very much. Describing a sort of all-encompassing holistic approach, which is really lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the next question is for Aaron. Thank you for your interesting presentation. You talk about the lack of epidemiological data in some areas of wildlife disease. What are the main things that can be done to overcome this?
Yeah, it's a good question. See, when we started our profession, I couldn't find much paper regarding the disease in wildlife or disease ecology, because as I told you, I'm learning about disease ecology the first time. So the baseline data is much more important. You should know what are the co-evolved diseases, just like in the human being. You can say there are so many diseases evolved with the human beings. Likewise, what are the diseases there? Then only with the plethora only you can talk about further how new disease coming about, whether it's a spillover or it's an emergence or a mutation or whatever. So that is quite lacking in most of the places. Okay. So that's fine. That's quite interesting. That, for example, when I'm talking about caisinophorus disease, it's a highly lethal disease to human being. Okay, when we did the whole genome sequencing of the virus, we found that's quite different, 10% different nucleotide based on the whole genome sequencing with the original sequence in 1944. So we found there are, the niche concept. There are diseases associated. It's a coevolution. Diseases have evolved along with the wildlife. So, okay. So the kind of concept actually has to be developed. For that, we should have some basic data. Hope I'm clear.
Thank you. That was a really great answer. Okay, and a question for Alejandra. Do you feel an extraordinary amount of pressure when you're in charge of survival of an extinct in the wild species?
Of course. But we do have an excellent team of herpetology. We do have, I only talked about 3 conservation projects, but we have plenty with amphibians. So we had all the capacity and the buildings to get those frogs. So we were confident that we were going to be able to being successful with that. So we were confident because of the team we had and the experience we have had with amphibians. This one was a little bit different because normally we work with amphibians from the south of the country and not from the north. So the conditions are very, very different, but with the help of partners and experts of the species, we managed to even get food for free and trying to mimic things that they were doing in Bolivia as well. We had a Bolivian person coming to our zoo because they have a similar frog, the Titicaca frog there, that it's a Tematobius as well. So, but yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but we were confident because of the team we had and experience.
Brilliant, thank you. Just having a little look through my questions. So I actually had a question for you, Aaron. You were obviously sharing a lot of images of quite graphic images of megafauna. Do you find that with these kind of charismatic megafauna, when you have mass die-offs and situations like that, is there a lot of PR to manage around it, sort of from a public perception, or is it not really something that gets onto their radar?
Regarding the diseases, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no. India still doesn't have that kind of consciousness because, we have a lot of things, other things to manage. There are, encroachments and habitat issues and, So like disease is not a purview right now with the department. We started slowly we're bringing up. We have the EHV, the first case, and from the Asia, and now it's becoming slowly a highlight. Okay. Because before that, there was no research, as I told you, no research and no background for us to prove that disease is much more important. Even I can tell you, see, it's not, if I'm not taking the time. Okay, see, when you see a tiger chasing a deer, okay, if it's being predated, I can tell you that it has some disease problem. Okay, so we call that's why parasitic mediated predation. So the new concept is coming up like that. So it's more important. So that's why we are looking at the host genome also in elephants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers.
So I've got another question here for Carlos, and it might be the last question, but we'll see if we can sneak one in. How do you create and maintain functional corridors for big cats with increasing deforestation reaching and invading even the conservation areas?
Great question. Yeah, well, fortunately in Colombia, we still have corridors, so we don't need to create them. We need to protect them. And that makes a really big difference in the terms of what action we can take, we have to take. And it's basically how we approach it is working with everybody involved in those corridors. Of course, there are better protected corridors in this moment, or areas where they are better protected than others, and some of them maybe need some restoration, but they are still there, and that's a huge benefit for us in Colombia. So we need to work in prevention. We work with everybody that is involved, and the first thing that we do when we start tracking all the different strategies is to see who is in those locations. The most important part of the conservation work that we do is the people on the ground, is how people interact with their wildlife, how is that relationship, bringing back traditional practices and how they raise their cattle, or improving some of them if it's possible. So basically we try to make everybody together, doing workshops, getting them involved, and not just sometimes it's very easy for us just to arrive to locations and start sanctioning what is good or what is bad. And it's not really like that. It's more working with the people on the field where the corridors are, and that actually they live in those corridors. There are not only protected areas. So in protected areas is one thing, but outside of protected areas is another thing. And that's how we are doing it. And I think that people is listening, to be honest. I think that what I saw when I started it, people very reluctant to this kind of approaches. And now actually people contacting us to see how we can help, or how they can get involved.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, I would like to invite all the speakers to turn their cameras on and join us. So Ashleigh and Aditi as well, and Tony. Super. And just to round up, I would like to go around and ask everyone to summarize in one sentence. What's your kind of one piece of advice for people who are aiming to get a career in wildlife health? So I'll start with the screen that I have. So Alejandra, do you want to go?
I think that nowadays it's more necessary than ever to have specialists in wildlife due to the conservation issues and the mass extinction that we have. So I think that the masters actually is a great opportunity to learn about conservation. So there's a lot of information that you can get from the masters in order to pursue your career in conservation. And as I told before, nowadays it's more important than ever due to mass extinction of wildlife.
Thank you so much. Aaron, next.
Well, that's a complicated question, actually. So, see, there are lots of challenges we are facing as in a developing country like India. We have human-wildlife conflict and so many issues and disease issues. And the focus won't be on you at all. Okay, so keep on. And besides, the science is building, and you have to have an open mind and have a collaboration with different sciences, mathematics, or molecular biology, or whatever you have. So have a collaboration and build the science. That's a difficult task, but yes, it is the future.
Thank you. And Ashleigh?
Yeah, it is a difficult question, but there's so much work that needs to be done. And I'd say the word that comes to mind is perseverance and patience, and looking at, where you can add value and come with a collaborative spirit. And, it may sound cheesy, but, following your heart and what you want to do and taking those opportunities. There's so much work that needs to be done. And if if you're passionate, just keep working towards that. And I really feel like this graduate degree helped me get to where I wanted to be. So thank you so much to ZSL and RVC for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Especially Tony.
Oh.
So in my opinion, within the consistency in learning and broadening a vision with time is the key, because with so many tasks we have to do, so many things going on, and with the One Health approach which is now being adopted, so we need collaborations and coordination with other line departments as well, with other professionals as well, and then capacity building regularly, because there's no end to learning and we can never be an expert in anything. So capacity building and continuous learning, and of course keeping the interest high. I think for me this is the key to be a good wildlife professional.
Fantastic. And finally, Carlos?
Well, I think everything has been covered, but probably the last will be dream big. Dream very big is really the only thing that we have left to have an open mind and look on the strategies. Nothing is impossible. Like if we look back 10 years ago, things were completely different. And dream big, get trained. That's one of the key parts, and learn from everyone, keep an open mind, because you never know where you are going to find that right solution or that right idea that you can integrate into your career.
Thank you. Tony, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I need to say that I think this lifelong learning is really important. We can all carry on learning about wildlife health right into the future. And yeah, that's the only thing I'd like to add.
Brilliant. Well, I would just like to say thank you to all of our fantastic speakers for taking part in tonight's event. I know for some of you it's very early, for some of you it's very late, so we really appreciate your contribution and dedication. And as always, to our brilliant audience for asking such thought-provoking questions. We do hope that if you have been in the audience, you've been inspired by the work of our speakers and of the bridge and our graduates. As you heard from Carlos earlier, and all the other speakers, the need for highly trained wildlife professionals is more important than ever. So if you are thinking of taking up a career in wildlife health, please do look at the postgraduate courses offered up by the Bridge and all our partners. And you can link to those in the YouTube comment area below. So we're almost at the end, and I promise I'll let everyone go soon. But just a final few housekeeping bits. So if everyone who's tuned in this evening, we would love to hear what you thought of the event and what you would like to see in next year's programme as well. So you can head through to our SurveyMonkey at www.surveymonkey.com/r/ZSL event 17. Just to repeat that, that's www.surveymonkey.com/r/ZSL event 17, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen as well to do it on your phone. Sadly, this is our last event of the 21-22 series, but do keep an eye out for our What's On page on the website, as that's where we'll be announcing all our future events. And so you don't miss out on anything at all that we have to offer, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and also catch up on all the other online events that we've run through this and any other content that we've produced. And you can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook as well. Also on our website are plenty of other resources like our ZSL Wild Science podcast and information about how to get involved with ZSL by donating, volunteering, or becoming a ZSL fellow. So there's so many ways that you can contribute to wildlife conservation. And just a final thank you to our speakers tonight. It's been fantastic, and it's been lovely to interact with our graduates once again. We're incredibly proud of the work that they're doing. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I wish you all a good night or a good morning, depending on where you are.